You ever wonder why some stories just won't die down no matter how hard people try to bury them? This one right here about Meghan Markle and the birth of Archie is turning into something way bigger than tabloid gossip. I thought, this cannot be real. The reason I didn't think it was AI is because it looks like the stomach is fake. Where the baby, I swear. That's a woman who has stepped forward, claiming she was paid to carry Archie and then vanish. That's not your average celebrity rumor. That's the kind of thing that flips the table. She says she was promised protection, money, and complete confidentiality. She played her part, stayed quiet for years, but now she's talking. And when someone starts dropping words like lawyers, agreements, and promises broken, people start paying attention. This isn't someone looking for 15 minutes of fame. She's not showing up on reality shows or selling a memoir. She's talking because she feels you stand that changes the vibe completely. Now, here's the wild part. Meghan and Harry haven't said a single word. Not a press release, not an Instagram post, not even a no comment. And in Meghan's case, that's weird. Really weird. Because when the press crosses the line or says something she doesn't like, she always hits back lawsuits, interviews, carefully worded statements. She plays that game well. So when she goes completely silent on a claim this big, people start asking why. Because silence, in this case, sounds a lot like fear. And let's be honest, this isn't just about whether or not a surrogate was used. It's about the cover-up. Most people today are pretty understanding when it comes to surrogacy. Celebrities do it all the time, sometimes for health reasons, sometimes for personal ones. But hiding it, paying someone to disappear, that crosses into shady territory. So are you saying that he's 2 weeks older? And so I thought, maybe that would allow time to wean the baby away from a birth mother if a surrogate was used. It would make sense, but instead of lying to the world, why not say, we want a baby, we're having a baby, and we're using a surrogate. That's not just about privacy, that's about image. And Meghan's image has been built like a brand. Carefully polished, highly curated, always camera-ready, which is exactly why this woman's claim hits so hard, because it feeds into something. People have long whispered about that Meghan is obsessed with how she's perceived. Every move she makes, from the way she poses in photos to the statements she releases, screams Hollywood control. Even after joining the royal family, she never really stopped being an actress. She just switched sets from soundstage to palace. So when this surrogate story came up, a lot of people didn't blink. They just nodded and said, yeah, that actually tracks. The secrecy during her pregnancy, the odd angles of the bump, the lack of a standard hospital photo, these things were brushed off back then as quirks or racism-fueled nitpicking. But now they've been thrown back into the spotlight. Very much seems that there is a complete unwillingness to make sacrifices for the family, particularly in public or anything else. So I think when you believe you're the main character, you don't need to make sacrifices. Everybody should see how important you are, and they should listen to you. And what you have to say is, you know, that the be what everybody pays attention to. Suddenly, they don't look so harmless anymore. They look like clues. There's also the matter of timing. Meghan made her pregnancy announcements, in ways that felt more like brand reveals than personal. Moments professional photo shoots, manicured captions, controlled lighting, and after Archie's birth. No hospital exit photo, no baby in arms, no typical royal fanfare. Just a mysterious photo op with a swaddled baby and two parents who looked oddly fresh. That's the kind of stuff that sticks with people. And when someone comes forward years later saying she was the one behind it all, that she carried the baby, and then got paid to keep quiet, it clicks. It fits the puzzle people have been trying to piece together. Right now, Meghan and Harry have a decision to make. Stay silent and let the story keep spreading like wildfire, or finally step into the mess and try to clean it up. But if they thought ignoring it would make it disappear, they seriously miscalculated. Because this thing, it's just getting started. The woman claiming to be Archie's surrogate isn't some anonymous whisper on a gossip site. She's reportedly dropped enough behind-the-scenes information to make even skeptics raise an eyebrow. We're talking about dates, meetings, legal paperwork, and compensation promises. She isn't flailing for attention. She's sounding like someone who was deeply involved and is finally done being silent. That's what makes this so dangerous for Meghan. It's not just the accusation, it's the details. Because when someone starts naming people present during hush-hush meetings or describing what was discussed with lawyers, it becomes hard to dismiss them as delusional. She says she was told this would be discreet, clean, and that she'd be taken care of for the rest of her life. Instead, she says she was dropped like a liability. Meanwhile, Meghan continues to treat it like it doesn't exist. No lawyer statements, no denials, nothing. But when a woman's out here hinting she might drop evidence, maybe texts, maybe recorded conversations, people start assuming there's fire behind the smoke. And with Meghan's history of confronting the press head-on, her silence just doesn't add up. Let's talk about the narrative Meghan's built around herself. She's always been about control of her image, her story, her brand. From her early Hollywood days to her royal exit, every public step has been meticulously managed. That's why this story threatens to unravel so much more than just one chapter. If this woman is telling the truth, then Meghan wasn't just hiding. A surrogate, she was actively crafting a version of reality the public was never meant to question. Critics are now revisiting old moments and asking tough questions. Why did her baby bump appear to change shape in different appearances? Why were there viral clips of her squatting strangely or adjusting the bump like it was a prop? Why was there no standard hospital reveal photo for a royal birth? The lack of transparency was unprecedented. And now, the theory gaining traction is that it wasn't about privacy, it was about perception. Meghan has spent her career in an industry where looks matter more than anything. In Hollywood, pregnancy can be a branding nightmares. Stretch marks, swollen features, post-baby, all seen as career damage. And Meghan knows this better than most. She lived in that world for years. So when people hear that a surrogate was allegedly used and then silenced, it doesn't feel random. It feels calculated, a way to maintain the perfect mother image without sacrificing a single camera-ready angle. The polished baby bump photos, the poised post-birth appearances, it all makes more sense when you view it through that lens. Of course, none of this has been proven in court, but in the court of public opinion, that's a different game. And Meghan's team seems to be forgetting that silence is rarely the winning move. Right now, people are connecting the dots faster than PR teams can keep up. Then there's Prince Harry. His role in all this is starting to look murkier by the minute. People once saw him as the protective husband, the doting dad, the rebel royal who chose love over tradition, but now they're wondering, did he know about the surrogate from day one? Or is he just being dragged along, either unaware or unwilling to push back? If he was involved in the plan, that's one thing. But if he wasn't, if Meghan handled this without his full knowledge, it raises even more questions about trust within the marriage and whether Harry, who's lost so much already, is clinging to silence out of fear of losing even more. There's a storm circling Meghan Markle, but it's no longer just about gossip or even the surrogate claim itself, it's about credibility. Every time Meghan chooses not to respond, the silence builds a vacuum, and that vacuum gets filled with doubt, speculation, and mistrust. People aren't just curious anymore, they're suspicious. And when your entire public persona has been built on transparency, empowerment, and setting the record straight, that suspicion cuts deeper. This woman's allegations have cracked open bigger than a single claim. They've reignited everything the public ever second-guessed about Meghan: the choreographed interviews, the media deals, the brand building. Every piece of her carefully shaped image is now under a magnifying glass. And what people are seeing doesn't look like authenticity. It looks like a production, high-budget, tightly scripted production with very little room for imperfection. Meghan's supporters argue that she's just protecting her privacy. But there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is choosing what to share. Secrecy is covering something up. And if a surrogate was involved, most people could have accepted that if it had been presented honestly. But hiring someone, making her disappear, and pretending she didn't exist, that's not protecting a family. That's playing with perception. What complicates everything is that Meghan isn't just a public figure. She was part of the royal family. Royals are expected to embody tradition, responsibility, and most importantly, when a child is born into that line, everything about it carries legal, constitutional, and symbolic weight. If the surrogate claim has any truth, it could raise questions not just about Meghan and Harry's actions, but about Archie's position within the royal structure. That's the part that truly terrifies the establishment. Because if there's even a hint that the birth was misrepresented, it drags the monarchy into the mess. It calls into question the legitimacy of succession, the rules of bloodline, and the very idea of royal lineage. That's not just a PR issue. That's a constitutional disaster waiting to happen. And still no denial, no lawsuit, no statement. Just silence from two people who usually know how to grab a microphone when they want to. The longer it goes on, the more people ask, what are they afraid of? The woman who claims to be the surrogate hasn't shown her face yet. She hasn't gone on television. But the threat that she might is hanging heavy. And if she drops receipt, call logs, legal documents, it's game over. The court of public opinion will turn fast. Meghan and Harry won't be victims of press intrusion. They'll be seen as architects of deception. And it's not just Meghan who stands to lose. Harry's image has always been rooted in emotional honesty. From talking about his grief over Diana to breaking with the royals to protect his family, he's always leaned into vulnerability. But if he's been part of a cover-up, or worse, allowed it out of blind loyalty, that vulnerability starts to look more like manipulation. At the center of all this is Archie, a child born into unimaginable attention. None of this is his fault. But the way his parents handled this storm will define how the world sees him for years. If this story spirals into court battles and exposes, Archie becomes more than a child. He becomes a symbol of controversy. Meghan and Harry have built a life in California based on freedom, authenticity, and truth-telling. But truth doesn't work on your schedule. You can't preach it and hide from it at the same time. If they have nothing to hide, they need to show it. Because in the end, silence won't save them.